So people like to make the claim that black people can't be racist by definition. And that's something, I mean, you can see all over the place, which is kind of funny because that's incredibly far from the truth. Now, there's just a distinction to be made. When you're talking about racism, there are two types of racism that exist. There's institutional racism, and then there's individual racism. When someone says you are being racist towards white people, they are talking about individual racism, not a system of oppression. They're just talking about, oh, you made a racist statement that is prejudiced towards a certain race. Individual racism can apply to anyone. And it's basically, individual racism is just prejudice or oppression based on someone's race. That's it. So based on that, yes, black people absolutely can be racist. Asian people can be racist. White people can be racist. Anyone can be racist, and no one is immune. White people can be racist to white people. Black people can be racist to black people. Asian people can be racist to Asians. That's just how it works. Institutional racism is where there's muddy waters, where it's a little bit tougher to completely define and to really talk about. And that's because you can't necessarily be racist, or there isn't institutional racism towards white people, which in that case, I would agree with your argument that there is no racism towards white people institutionally. And that's because there isn't. I mean, there's no current evidence or examples of this existing. Now, on the current track that we're going with Black Lives Matter, there is. As soon as black people gain any sort of power, not black people, that's going to sound really racist. As soon as Black Lives Matter gets any sort of power, then there will be systematic racism towards white people, because they already hold these prejudiced and individualistic racist views towards white people. And so as soon as they get power, which they are gaining power every fucking day pretty much, then they are going to, then it will be systematic racism towards white people, because these people who hold these racist views are going to hold power. The same thing as if some KKK leader were to become president of the United States and his KKK council were to become, I don't know, other parts of the checks and balances in the United States, then we would live in a very racist nation towards black people in that regard. Now, I want to make it clear that racism on the individual level is bad for anyone. If a white person says, I hate black people, it's just as bad as a black person saying they hate white people. Racism is not how we are going to conquer these racism problems in our country. If you want to battle racism, just stop talking about race. We don't have, the more we talk about race, the more race relations suffer and the worse race relations are. So if you want to actually battle racism, just stop talking about it. We are a progressive nation who can continually makes improvements towards the oppressed people. But you just got to stop talking about it. And stop trying to divide us by creating these movements like Black Lives Matter that is literally talking about dividing the races and fighting for segregation between blacks and whites. You are fighting for racism. And yes, that is actual racism. Black people, just like everybody else, can be racist.